Hey everybody, this is Zach Murray, and this is Module 13 over tort liability. Tort liability is defined as a civil wrong that unfairly causes someone else to suffer loss or harm, resulting in a legal liability for the person who commits the act. Most of the most common intentional torts are assault, battery, defamation, false imprisonment, and trespass to personal property. Unintentional torts most often stem from negligence, and there's four things that are looked at when they're trying to decide who's at fault. One, standard of care, breach of duty, proximity or legal cause, along with injury. The first case that I found was Frame versus Como, and basically the teacher was acting as a substitute, and he was delivering a spelling test in a class, and these kids were acting up. He asked them to leave several times. They wouldn't go, and I guess he walked up to the desk, and right as he was walking up to the desk, the student stood up, and as he was grabbing his arm, it caused the student to fall backwards into the podium. The podium hit the blackboard, and he challenged that the actions were unnecessary, and they tried to file assault and battery. The court ruled that the teacher was actually right by doing what he did. He thought that the actions by the student forced the teacher's hand to facilitate the learning process along with maintaining order in the class. Measures that could have been taken to avoid this, maybe setting up some better ground rules at the beginning. The teacher that left the lesson plans probably shouldn't have had them doing a test or something of that magnitude when they were gone. That's kind of a rough spot for a teacher to come in and have to do something like that when they're not used to the class that they're sitting in. At our school, in PE, there's a lot of times where you would think that we would need to physically remove a student from a situation, but we try to never do that, and if it escalates farther than us being able to talk him into going wherever he needs or she needs to go, we usually get an administrator. And then that usually keeps us clear as far as liability goes. We don't want to injure somebody or do something that we're not supposed to be doing. So maybe ethics-wise, the teacher shouldn't have grabbed the student. Maybe without being there, it's hard to tell how calmly he asked or in what manner he was asking. So I don't know, maybe trying to ask in a nicer way or going about it a little different than walking over and physically trying to remove somebody from a class might have went over a little better and maybe could have avoided the situation. The next case kind of hit home with me. Although I teach at an elementary school, I am grateful that I do not have to worry about locker rooms. As a basketball and football coach, I do have to worry about those locker rooms, and I do not envy teachers that have to deal with this every single class period of every single day at all. But basically, the case, the PE teacher stopped class early because students were misbehaving and sent them back into the locker room to change. He kept another student out in the gym to talk to him more about how they were acting, and one of the students got pushed into a locker, and it ended up causing an emergency surgery for the kid, and the courts actually ruled with the kid and his family because they said the teacher had gotten several signs throughout the day that the students needed more supervision, and so they felt like the teacher should have been giving them that supervision rather than letting them go off into the locker room by themselves. Like I said, at my school, this is not possible because we don't have a locker room. But I know when at basketball and football after practice, we have a coach in there at all times just to avoid situations like this. And we usually rotate days where one of us will be in the locker room and some of us will be outside. But there's so many little things that can happen in a locker room that are bad that we just try to avoid that at all costs. As far as what could have prevented this, just not letting the kids go in there alone, talking to the student that needed talk to more about how they were acting while the class was still in the gym doing something different. There's just too many things that can go wrong with an entire class away from where you are as the teacher. And I don't know that ethics-wise he did anything wrong. He probably just didn't think about something happening in that short amount of time that he could have talked to the student. He was probably thinking, I'll talk to him real quick and then move on. And then something happened that quick. So I'm sure from then on he is more than taking the proper precautions on sticking with his class the entire time instead of letting them go on their own. The next case, this one's pretty scary to me. It's Damgard versus the Oakland High School District. And he's a chemistry teacher, was having his students perform an experiment in the classroom, and the teacher got called away, and the experiment ended up exploding and injured a student. And the court ruled again in favor of the student because they said that the experiment was under the direct management of the teacher. And so the proper supervision didn't occur because the teacher got called away. I kind of understand that because working with chemicals and dangerous things like that, it would be really hard to get me to leave that classroom. And I don't know if it was a family emergency. I don't know why he got called away, but it would be very hard for me to leave a class full of students working with chemicals alone. So in our district, I don't think I know when I was in high school they had like warnings and stuff on our doors when we were doing experiments and things like that, so people knew to not come in unless it was an emergency. Or they would call into the classroom over the intercom, and our teacher was able to say we're doing an experiment, and they would come later. So that seems like a good idea to me. And then if it's an emergency, they can send somebody down and kind of swap out so there's still some supervision going on, and that way liability is handled. Prevention could have been just the teacher not being called away. That may not have prevented the experiment from exploding, but it certainly would have made her less liable, I'm assuming, because the supervision was there. It might have just been kind of deemed a freak accident. And then again, on professional ethics, leaving a class full of students with dangerous materials is not a great idea, no matter what the situation. I think that could have been handled a lot better, and hopefully this teacher learned that and is doing things the right way now. And the next one could also fall under something that could happen to me. It was Guerreri versus Tyson, and a teacher tried treating a student's infected finger, and for some reason they put it in scalding hot water for 10 minutes. That seems silly to me, but regardless, this led to the student being put in a hospital for 28 days. And the in loco parentis rule or law, where teachers are kind of stand-in parents when students are at school, the court rule did not apply here because the teacher performing the treatment did not have proper knowledge, and so they basically said they were acting without the proper information to properly treat the injury. So our school, I can't imagine, would look too kindly on anybody doing treatments without the proper information. I know that we put out code purple calls if we need medical treatment, like emergency medical treatment, or we just take kids to the office if we can't handle it there. And that seems to work out pretty well. That way nobody is doing stuff they're not supposed to. Or if we have other students that have specific situations, we go through training so we know how to handle if something bad were to happen. Prevention would have been just that, calling the office or calling a nurse and not taking matters into your own hands when you're obviously not fit to make those decisions. And ethics-wise, you're just putting students in harm's way by doing things you don't know how to do. So it would be a lot better if if you put that student in the hands of somebody who knows what they're doing. And then the last one is also scary, Ridge versus the Boulder County Union Junior Senior High School. Basically, a teacher demonstrated how to use a power saw without the safety guard attached, and the safety guard was available, so I don't know why he used it without it. But when the students went on to use the stuff in class that day, they used it without the safety guard and ended up getting injured. And the court found the instructor liable because demonstrations are supposed to be precise, meaning they need to have an exact demonstration of what the teacher wants them to be doing. Otherwise, it's unsafe. And obviously, using a power saw without safety guards and all the safety measures covered is extremely unsafe. So the court ruled with the student. Our school doesn't have a technology class, being an elementary school like this, but again, I think our administration from top to bottom would be thoroughly disappointed in any of our teachers that did not demonstrate the proper mechanics of using a power tool such as this that could seriously injure somebody. All I think would have had to have been done to change it is just put the safety guard on, which isn't that hard. I don't understand why it wasn't on there in the first place, but a little mistake there probably cost him big time. And then the ethics, just do things the right way, use common sense. You wouldn't want your kid or your wife or your whatever, your family, using a power tool without safety guards. So why put however many students are in your class in the line of fire? So those are my 5 cases. This module was pretty cool to kind of get some background information on what I really need to be focused on in certain situations. I know a lot about liability stuff being in PE. I think we do a pretty good job at our school of keeping ourselves covered, but some of the situations that popped up are just crazy that teachers can be liable for. So just always use common sense and be extra careful and do things the right way. So hope you enjoyed watching. Thanks.